everybody. Good day to you. Well, always powered by coffee each and every time. Welcome to another episode of Psycho's Platters. So you may be asking yourself, well, what's Mighty Psycho going to do today? Well, you know what? It's another episode of that future award-winning series, Jukebox from Hell. That's right. Now, if you got to check out episode 57, Great White Psycho City from 92, great. If you haven't, you may want to watch it. Might be a pleasant surprise for you, but we're not going to talk about that today. What we're going to talk about is from June 1994, Stevie Nicks' Street Angel. That's right. Here's the front. Here's the back. I didn't even know that this CD existed. Seriously. Okay. This is an over 30-year-old CD, and I just happened to go to a resale shop and pick this up. Of course, we got, lyric pages and little photographs of her when she was a kid. But basically, that's pretty much the gist of it, though, for the booklet part. I do not recall if this ever was put out on vinyl. That'd be quite interesting. This being, of course, on Atlantic Records is what you got here. Now, got my research, of course. Stevie Nicks' official website, wiki, all music, and I even pulled in a Hoffman forum just to dig up on something here. So anyways, this album here, Street Angel, came out in June 1994. It only made it to number 45 on the U.S. Billboard 200, and it barely made gold in the United States. Seriously. They went off and said truthfully that this was the lowest charting Stevie Nicks album in her whole entire solo career. Well, is it worth that? Is it worth that accolade? We're going to dig into it in a minute here. Now, also, 2 singles were released off of this thing. Maybe Love Will Change Your Mind in the United States only made it to number 57 in the Billboard. And Blue Denim was released in Canada and only made it to number 70. Such atrocity. I don't get it. Now, the previous album before Street Angel actually was a best of with some new songs called Time Space. But like I said, best of Stevie Nicks with 3 new songs. In September 1991, the one song that came off of there and was a hit called Sometimes It's a Bitch made it to number 7 on the U.S. mainstream. And I hate to admit this, that it was co-written by John Bon Jovi, that no-talent hack. That's right. Even he can write occasionally good songs. I said write, not perform. But this isn't a Bon Jovi hate forum. This is Stevie Nicks. So anyways, number 7 for that single, right? So Street Angel was recorded mostly in 1992 and 93. With the demos for some of these songs going back to before 1984. For example, Greta, Destiny, Love is Like a River were like pre-84. Rose Garden goes back to the early 70s, like the Buckingham Nicks era. Okay. Jane and Listen to the Rain were written around 1990. So this is kind of a cobbled together, but not, if that makes any sense. And she's brought this up in interviews, okay, that she was coming to the end of an 8-year addiction to Klonopin. Now, I've never had Klonopin before, but she said it was brutal, and that with the lack of production that she would have liked for this album is some of the causes as to why the album did not do very well. Now, you cast as suspects for this album? Well, get this. Besides Stevie herself, you get 3 members of Tom Petty's Heartbreakers. Yeah, Mike Campbell being the biggest name of those 3. You get Roy Bittan from Bruce Springsteen's E Street Band and others. Now, if you're an Eagles fan, you're going to care to know, and this surprised me to no end. I almost would like to know how he hooked up musically with her for this album. But Bernie Leadon, original guitar player, 9 tracks he's on this thing. So he's on about 3/4 of this album. Also Andy Fairweather Lowe, Waddy Wachtel, Bob Dylan does a track, and so does David Crosby, and others indeed. Let's get started into the meat and the potatoes in this whole entire thing. So, track one, we go Blue Denim. This one was a co-write with Mike Campbell. Why wasn't this a top 40 single in the U.S.? It should have been, honestly. Stevie said previously in the interviews that Blue Denim was inspired by Lindsey Buckingham. So, yeah, I could see that, especially in those lyrics. Track two, Greta. I see this in an 80s Fleetwood Mac vibe, and it would have worked on Mirage. Yes, would have worked on Mirage. Street Angel, the self-titled track. David Crosby's on this one. Starts out haunting. Street Angel is the homeless in this case. Track four, Docklands. I'm digging the rhythm of this one. Sister says, hold your head high, indeed. Track five, Listen to the Rain. I can see this on one of her 80s solo albums, or maybe Fleetwood Mac's Tango in the Night album. Killer guitar here. This also could have made a great single. Definitely. And this thing's chock full of of many pleasant possibilities for singles, that's for sure. Track six, Destiny. Beautiful mid-tempo ballad here. Track seven, Unconditional Love. I get the message, but the song is ugh. Track eight, Love is Like a River. I like the song, but get rid of the backing vocals. They're kind of annoying, at least in this guy's opinion. Track nine, Rose Garden. I'm digging this, no pun intended. I can see this on a country pop album, contemporary right now. Or how about this? This would have been fun for Ringo to cover on his Look Up Country album that he just got done releasing, right? I could see it, just change a couple words and hey, it would have worked. Track 10, Maybe Love Will Change Your Mind. Written by Sandy Stewart. This should have been a top 40 hit, and I also could see this have been done with Fleetwood Mac. Track 11, Just Like a Woman. Bob Dylan wrote it, and he happens to be on this version, but unfortunately it's a pass. Track 12, Kick It. An inspirational song about addiction. This could have been single. This could have been a single, I'm telling you. Seriously, that's like, what, 3 or 4 potential singles in this album. And then we close out track 13, Jane. It's an interesting song about Jane Goodall. If you know who that is, beautiful. If not, Google her and her study of chimpanzees. Yeah, I'm serious. Anyways, this closes this particular album out. The bonus tracks that were on the Japanese edition, God's Garden, a beautiful ballad about her belated mother, and Inspiration, which is great, inspiring song, no pun intended, here, that kind of shows that friends and loved ones are our root to ourself. Yeah, that's right. So then there's the afterwards, of course. There was a 3-month tour that followed the album's release. The next thing that you would see from her was the 3 CD box set with hits and rarities, Enchanted, released in April of 1998. And then you wouldn't actually see a full studio album till May 2001 with Trouble in Shangri-La, which actually made it to number 5 in the US. So let me ask you, did you end up getting this? Are you a Stevie Nicks fan? You know, her solo stuff. I like a lot of her solo material. Am I a super fan? No. But this thing here pleasantly surprised me. Stevie, don't beat yourself up about this album, okay? Most of this, I would say about 80% of this album is pretty damn good. Out of all honesty, they should have at least, if anything, they could have went off and took inspiration and replaced that with one of the weaker tracks. And I think you would have had a much stronger album on that too. So, like I said, did you end up getting this in 1994, or did it kind of get overlooked like it did for me? A real surprise, right? So let me ask you, or let me tell you, even though you didn't ask, what the next episode of Jukebox from Hell is going to be, episode 59. That's right. And so basically, we're going to go back to a band that we did way back a couple seasons ago. But this time here, we're going to be going to November 2006 from a previous earlier 2006 live recording in Ohio. Why am I doing this? Well, it sticks, one with everything, including the Cleveland Contemporary Orchestra, the youth orchestra. Oh boy, this thing only sold 10,000 copies on CD. Why? We'll look into that next time, right here. I hope, like I said, that you guys are enjoying the series. If you happen to have any ideas or suggestions for future Jukebox from Hells, kindly just stick them in the comments and tell me all this stuff. But until then, ladies and gentlemen, always remember, always powered by coffee each and every time. And this important fact: Psycho's Platters is a Love Peas production.